I don't know how you people think. You can just walk into a 5-star hotel without proper documentation. But this ends now. Hotel desk clerk Rebecca Martinez sneered at the well-dressed black family standing before her marble counter, dramatically for other guests in the opulent lobby to see. Dr. James Washington, his wife Dr. Sarah Washington, and their 14-year-old daughter Maya had just arrived at the Grand Meridian Hotel in downtown Chicago. They were dressed impeccably, Dr. James in a tailored suit, Dr. Sarah in professional attire, and Maya in a private school uniform with her laptop bag. "Excuse me," Dr. Sarah's voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to respect. "We have a confirmed reservation. Here's our confirmation number. GM4477. Rebecca snatched the phone showing the confirmation email, examining it like a detective studying forged evidence. "This looks suspicious to me. Probably made this at home on your computer." Around them, the luxury hotel's lobby buzzed with medical conference attendees, all checking in smoothly at adjacent counters. The contrast was stark and deeply uncomfortable. Maya pulled out her own phone and started recording discreetly. At 14, she was already media-savvy enough to know this was going wrong fast. "Ma'am," Dr. James maintained his composure despite the obvious disrespect. "I'm Dr. James Washington from Washington Medical Technologies. We're here for the International Cardiology Conference. Perhaps you could check under my company name." Rebecca's fingers barely touched her keyboard. "Nothing there. Look, we're completely booked anyway. You should try the Motel 6 across town." The Motel 6, a budget motel when they had premium suite reservations at the conference headquarters hotel. "This is ridiculous." Dr. Sarah stepped forward, her professional demeanor cracking slightly. "I'm the keynote speaker at tomorrow's cardiac surgery symposium. I specifically booked the presidential suite 3 weeks ago." "Keynote speaker?" Rebecca laughed mockingly. "Right, and I'm the Queen of England." Hotel manager Kevin Sullivan appeared from the back office, having been quietly summoned by Rebecca's signal. He was a portly man in an expensive suit, exuding the kind of authority that came from years of handling problems. "What's the situation here?" Sullivan's tone suggested he'd already decided who was at fault. "These people are claiming they have reservations," Rebecca explained, emphasizing people with obvious disdain. "No confirmation in our system, and they're getting aggressive about it." Maya's phone captured everything. Her Instagram story was already live, viewer count climbing, 23. 47, 89 followers watching in real time. Sullivan looked the Washington family up and down with practiced dismissal. "Sir, Mum, I understand you're disappointed, but we can't accommodate guests without proper reservations. I'm afraid you'll need to find alternative accommodations." Dr. James pulled out a leather portfolio containing their travel documents. "Here's our confirmation email, credit card statement showing the $2,400 charge, and my American Express Platinum receipt." Sullivan barely glanced at the documents. "Anyone can forge these nowadays. We have to be careful about fraud." Dr. Sarah's medical conference badge hung prominently from her lanyard. "Dr. Sarah Washington, MD, keynote speaker, International Cardiology Conference." Neither staff member acknowledged it. "You see this badge?" Dr. Sarah pointed to her credentials. "I'm presenting breakthrough cardiac surgery techniques to 3,000 physicians tomorrow morning. This hotel is hosting the conference." "Ma'am, please don't raise your voice," Sullivan replied condescendingly, though Dr. Sarah had spoken normally. "We're trying to help you find somewhere appropriate for your budget." Maya's Instagram story viewer count exploded, 156 to 198. 445 followers, comments poured in. "This is disgusting. #hotel discrimination. Someone help this family. I'm screen recording this. That hotel staff is about to get fired." Her TikTok notification showed she was trending locally. The #number Grand Meridian Hotel was beginning to appear. Other hotel guests began stopping to watch the commotion. Dr. Patricia Chen, a conference attendee, approached with her phone out. "Excuse me, I'm also attending the cardiology conference. I saw Dr. Washington's name on the speaker list. She's literally the main event tomorrow." Rebecca waved dismissively. "Ma'am, please don't interfere with hotel security matters." "Hotel security?" Dr. Chen looked around confused. "This is a family trying to check into their room." Sullivan's voice took on a threatening tone. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. You're disturbing other guests. The Washington family hadn't raised their voices once. Maya continued recording, her viewer count now over 800. We're not leaving, Dr. James said firmly. We have paid reservations and we're staying in this hotel tonight. That's trespassing, Sullivan announced loudly enough for the growing crowd to hear. I'm calling security. Dr. Sarah looked at her watch. 9:47 p.m. James, maybe we should just. No, Sarah, we're not running from this. Maya, keep recording. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from her older brother Marcus, a senior at Stanford. Maya, your video is all over Twitter. Dad's trending. Something big is happening. The hotel security guards appeared within minutes, large men who looked more suited for nightclub bouncing than luxury hotel service. Behind them walked Chicago police officer Martinez, clearly annoyed at being called for what appeared to be a customer service dispute. What's the problem here? Officer Martinez asked, though his eyes immediately fixed on the Washington family with obvious assumptions. Trespassing, Sullivan announced definitively. They're refusing to leave after being told we have no available rooms. Dr. James reached for his wallet. Officer, I'd like to show you our confirmation. Sir, keep your hands visible and step back, Martinez commanded, his hand moving toward his belt. The crowd of hotel guests gasped. Dr. Chen held up her phone, also recording now. This is insane, she called out. They're just trying to check in. Maya's live stream now showed 1,247 viewers. The comments were moving too fast to read. Call the news now. This hotel is about to get destroyed. I'm sharing this everywhere. Someone identify this hotel. Dr. Sarah looked at her husband with the expression that said everything. This was the moment they'd prepared their daughter for but hoped would never come. Maya, she said quietly, call your grandfather. Maya's eyes widened. Grandfather meant one thing in their family, the nuclear option. Are you sure, Mom? I'm sure. Tell him where we are and what's happening. Officer Martinez was growing impatient. I need everyone to step outside so we can sort this out. No, Dr. James said simply. We're registered guests of this hotel. The security guards moved closer, clearly preparing for physical removal. Maya's phone buzzed insistently. The caller ID showed, Grandpa Robert, Washington Industries. Maya looked at her parents, then at the hostile hotel staff, then at her phone showing 1,847 live viewers. Should I answer? She whispered. Dr. James nodded. Put it on speaker. Maya, let's end this. As Maya pressed accept, every person in that marble lobby, hotel staff, security guards, police officer, and dozens of watching guests, had no idea they were about to witness the most expensive customer service failure in hospitality history. The voice that emerged from Maya's phone would shut down more than just one hotel's night. Maya, sweetheart, what's wrong? Your brother said something was happening at the hotel. The voice was deep, authoritative, and carried the weight of decades in corporate boardrooms. Robert Washington, CEO of Washington Industries, founder of the largest minority-owned construction company in America. The hotel lobby fell completely silent. Hi, Grandpa, Maya said, her young voice steady despite everything. We're at the Grand Meridian Hotel in Chicago, and they're saying we don't have reservations. The police are here now. A pause that seemed to last forever. The Grand Meridian Hotel. Maya, put me on speakerphone. I want to speak with whoever is in charge of this situation. Officer Martinez looked confused at the sudden shift in everyone's body language. Hotel manager Sullivan began to look less confident. This is Robert Washington speaking to whoever is managing this situation. I understand there's some confusion about my family's hotel reservation. The name hit the lobby like a corporate earthquake. Robert Washington, the Robert Washington who had built half of Chicago's skyline. The Robert Washington whose company held construction contracts worth billions across the Midwest. Hotel desk clerk Rebecca's confident sneer began to falter. Manager Sullivan's face went pale as the implications started sinking in. Several business travelers in the lobby began whispering urgently to each other. Anyone in Chicago business circles knew that name. Sir, Sullivan stammered, we were just ... That is, we were trying to verify ... Verify what exactly? Robert Washington's voice cut through the lobby with surgical precision. My son made a reservation 3 weeks ago. Confirmation number GM 4477, Presidential Suite. Credit card charge of $2,400. What exactly needs verification? Maya's live stream viewer count exploded past 2,000. The comments were now a flood of recognition. Holy shit, that's Robert Washington. This hotel is done. Washington Industries builds everything in Chicago. Someone's about to lose their job. This is about to be legendary. Let me provide some context. Robert Washington continued with a methodical precision that had built his empire. Washington Industries currently has active construction contracts with the Grand Meridian Hotel Group worth $847 million. Sullivan's knees nearly buckled. We built this hotel in 2018. We maintain the VIC systems. We handle all major renovations. Our electrical subsidiary powers this building. The numbers crashed into the lobby like financial bombs. Our security division monitors this property. Our cleaning subsidiary services 6 Grand Meridian locations across the Midwest. Rebecca was now visibly shaking, finally understanding the magnitude of her mistake. I should also mention that Grand Meridian's parent company, Luxury Hotels International, is currently bidding on a $200 million casino resort project in Las Vegas. Washington Industries is the primary construction contractor they've been courting for 8 months. Officer Martinez was backing away slowly, having received urgent radio messages to disengage immediately. Dr. Patricia Chen, still recording, whispered to nearby guests, "This is the most expensive customer service failure I've ever witnessed." Washington Industries employs 12,000 people across 6 states. Robert Washington continued. We have partnerships with every major hotel chain in America. Combined annual contracts exceed $2.8 billion. The business travelers in the lobby were pulling out phones to check stock prices and industry news. But beyond all the business implications, Robert Washington's voice softened slightly. This is my family. My son is a respected physician. My daughter-in-law is performing breakthrough cardiac surgery tomorrow. My granddaughter is an honor student who's never caused a problem anywhere. Maya's viewer count hit 3,500. The story was spreading beyond social media. Local news was monitoring the hashtags. Maya, Robert Washington addressed his granddaughter directly. How are you holding up, sweetheart? I'm okay, Grandpa, just sad that people think this way about us. I know, baby, but watch what happens when people face consequences for their choices. The lobby crowd could hear the love and protection in his voice, mixed with the steel of someone who had fought discrimination his entire career. At Grand Meridian Hotel Group headquarters in New York, emergency alerts were flooding executive phones at nearly 11 p.m. Ma'am, an assistant reported breathlessly to CEO Victoria Sterling, we have a situation at our Chicago property. There's a viral live stream showing our staff discriminating against the Washington family. It has thousands of viewers. Which Washington family? Sterling asked, though her stomach was already dropping. Robert Washington, Washington Industries. Sterling's face went white. Get me on the phone with Chicago immediately. And wake up our legal team now. Maya's live stream comments were now being screenshot and shared across platforms. Twitter, hashtag Grand Meridian scandal trending. TikTok, multiple reaction videos already posting. LinkedIn, business professionals sharing and commenting. Instagram, Dr. Chen's story had 500 shares in 10 minutes. This incident has been thoroughly documented, Robert Washington noted with clinical precision. Multiple recordings, live stream footage, witness testimonies. Our legal team will require all of it, not for litigation purposes, but for industry training. This will become a case study in hospitality failures. It's now 10:31 p.m., Robert Washington observed. I'm giving Grand Meridian exactly 1 hour to demonstrate they understand the severity of this situation. That's until 11:31 p.m. Sullivan was frantically trying to gesture to Rebecca to fix whatever could be fixed. Sir, Sullivan's voice cracked, if we could just review the reservation system again. 1 hour, Robert Washington repeated. Maya, keep that stream running. Let everyone see how this hotel handles accountability. Maya's viewer count was now over 4,000. The story had escaped social media and was spreading through news outlets. Rebecca was now frantically typing, miraculously finding the Washington family's reservation in the system. "Sir, I'm so sorry. There seems to have been a computer error. Your presidential suite is ready immediately." But it was far too late for technical difficulties. A computer error. Robert Washington's voice carried dangerous calm. The same computer error that made you suggest they try Motel 6. The same error that had you call security. Dr. James looked at his daughter's phone screen, watching thousands of people demanding justice in real time. Maya's phone rang. The caller ID showed Victoria Sterling, Grand Meridian Hotel CEO. "Maya, this is probably for me," Robert Washington said. "Answer it, sweetheart." "This is Victoria Sterling, CEO of Grand Meridian Hotel Group. Mr. Washington, I am calling to personally apologize for the unconscionable treatment your family received tonight." The lobby fell silent except for the sounds of Maya's live stream, now approaching 5,000 viewers. "Ms. Sterling, are you prepared to implement the reforms we've discussed in previous industry meetings?" "Yes, sir. All of them, immediately." Effective immediately, Sterling announced over the phone speaker for everyone to hear. Desk clerk Rebecca Martinez is terminated. Manager Kevin Sullivan is suspended pending investigation. Rebecca sank into a chair, her career in hospitality over. Sullivan stood frozen, watching his 20-year career collapse on Livestream. Security personnel involved will undergo mandatory bias training. Any future incidents result in immediate contract termination. "Mr. Washington, I want you to know that this incident will cost Grand Meridian significantly more than just personnel changes," Sterling continued. "The $200 million Las Vegas project, we understand if Washington Industries withdraws their bid. Ms. Sterling, that depends on the reforms I see implemented industry-wide. Understood completely. We're also establishing a $10 million hospitality equity fund to combat discrimination across our properties." Maya's live stream peaked at 7,500 viewers as news outlets began picking up the story. "I've contacted the CEOs of Hilton, Marriott, and Hyatt," Sterling continued. "We're implementing uniform anti-discrimination protocols across the industry. The American Hotel Association is fast-tracking bias prevention standards. Your family's experience is driving systemic change." As the call ended, the Washington family stood in the same marble lobby where they'd been humiliated an hour earlier. But everything had changed. Dr. James put his arm around Maya, who finally ended her live stream after thanking her followers. "Dad always taught us," Maya said quietly to her parents, "that our response to injustice matters more than the injustice itself." Dr. Sarah smiled, finally relaxing. "I think we responded pretty well. The presidential suite was ready, but more importantly, an industry was being reformed." Maya Washington became the youngest person ever featured in hospitality industry magazine's Changemakers issue. Her live-stream documentation led to the Hospitality Accountability Act requiring bias incident reporting systems in all major hotel chains. The Grand Meridian Hospitality Equity Fund awarded grants to 200 minority-owned businesses in the travel industry. Rebecca Martinez never worked in hospitality again. Kevin Sullivan's termination became a cautionary tale taught in hotel management schools nationwide. Victoria Sterling implemented the most comprehensive anti-discrimination program in hotel industry history, which became the standard other chains adopted. Dr. Sarah Washington's keynote speech the next morning, delivered after a comfortable night in the presidential suite, focused on overcoming systemic barriers. It received a standing ovation from 3,000 physicians. Robert Washington's response didn't just save one night's hotel stay. It transformed an entire industry's approach to discrimination. Washington Industries' partnership with Grand Meridian continued, contingent on successful bias prevention implementation. The $200 million Las Vegas project proceeded with additional diversity requirements that became industry standard. Other hotel chains proactively implemented similar reforms to avoid their own viral discrimination incidents. Maya Washington parlayed her experience into advocacy work, speaking at hospitality conferences about dignity and documentation. Her TikTok account, focused on civil rights education for teenagers, gained 500,000 followers. She frequently tells her story at schools, teaching young people that staying calm, gathering evidence, and having powerful allies can reshape systems that seem unchangeable. This story proves that discrimination has consequences when properly documented and strategically addressed. Social media creates accountability that traditional complaint systems couldn't achieve. Corporate relationships and economic pressure drive faster change than legal processes alone. Young voices, amplified by technology and supported by family power, can move entire industries. The Washington family succeeded because they combined dignity, documentation, and strategic response with economic leverage. Have you experienced discrimination while traveling? Document it. Share it. Your story matters. Have you witnessed bias against other guests? Don't stay silent. Record responsibly. Speak up safely. Hotels and corporations respond to public pressure and economic consequences. Your voice, combined with others, moves industries toward equity. The Washington family's one night at a hotel reformed hospitality industry standards nationwide. Your experience could be the next story that creates systemic change. Remember, dignity can't be taken, only given away. Document everything. Stay calm. Apply pressure where it counts. Justice requires witnesses. Accountability requires evidence. Change requires courage. Together, we ensure no family endures what the Washingtons experienced that night in Chicago. 3 months after the hotel incident, Maya Washington found herself in the marble halls of Congress, testifying before the House Subcommittee on Consumer Protection and Commerce. "My name is Maya Washington, and I'm 14 years old," she began, her voice steady as cameras captured every word. 3 months ago, my family was denied hotel accommodations despite having valid reservations simply because of the color of our skin. The committee room was packed with hotel industry executives, civil rights leaders, and media representatives. But this story isn't just about discrimination. It's about how documentation, family support, and strategic response can create systemic change that protects millions of people. Congresswoman Maria Santos leaned forward. "Maya, can you explain how your Livestream documentation changed the situation?" "Yes, ma'am. By recording everything and streaming live, I created thousands of witnesses. People couldn't deny what happened because they saw it in real time. The hotel couldn't control the narrative because the evidence was already public." Maya's testimony led to the Hotel Transparency Act requiring all major hotel chains to implement real-time bias reporting systems. The Maya Protocol became standard across the hospitality industry, named after her method of calm documentation and strategic family communication. Hotels now train staff using her Livestream as an example of how discrimination incidents can destroy careers and companies within hours. The Maya Washington case became required study material in hospitality management programs at over 200 universities. Grand Meridian Hotel Group stock price initially dropped 12% following the viral incident, representing a $340 million loss in market value. However, their proactive response and comprehensive reforms led to a 23% increase in bookings from minority travelers within 6 months. The company's diversity initiatives became a competitive advantage, attracting corporate clients who valued inclusive practices. The Washington investment, as industry analysts called it, proved that addressing discrimination could be profitable when done authentically. Dr. James Washington expanded his medical technology company's diversity programs, inspired by his daughter's advocacy. Dr. Sarah Washington's cardiac surgery innovations continued to save lives, but she also became a prominent voice in medical equity initiatives. Maya Washington started the Young Voices for Justice Foundation at age 15, teaching teenagers across America how to document discrimination and create change. Robert Washington used his construction empire to implement hiring and contracting programs that opened opportunities for minority-owned businesses nationwide. The hospitality industry transformation inspired similar changes across other sectors. Airlines implemented bias prevention protocols after witnessing the hotel industry's rapid changes. Retail chains created customer dignity training programs to avoid their own viral discrimination incidents. Restaurant associations developed anti-discrimination standards based on the Grand Meridian reforms. The Washington effect became a business school term describing how one family's strategic response could reshape entire industries. Maya's younger cousins, inspired by her example, began their own advocacy work. Her 12-year-old cousin Jordan documented bias in his middle school and created a peer mediation program that was adopted by his district. Her 16-year-old cousin Alexis used social media to expose discriminatory practices at retail stores, leading to policy changes at 3 major chains. The Washington family's approach to strategic documentation and response became a model for families nationwide. Maya Washington's story reached beyond America's borders. The European Hotel Association invited her to speak at their annual conference in Vienna. Her methods were studied by civil rights organizations in Canada, the UK, and Australia. The Washington documentation method became part of discrimination response training in over 20 countries. UNESCO recognized her work with the Young Human Rights Defender Award at age 16. Harvard Business School developed a case study on the Grand Meridian incident for their crisis management curriculum. When customer service goes viral, the Maya Washington case became one of their most requested studies. Stanford University's Graduate School of Business created an entire course on digital advocacy and corporate accountability using Maya's Livestream as the foundational example. Law schools across America added the case to their civil rights curricula, showing how technology could accelerate justice. Maya's approach inspired a new form of advocacy journalism among young people. Livestream justice became a recognized form of civil rights documentation. Major news networks hired Maya as a consultant on social media verification and real-time reporting. Her TikTok account became a masterclass in calm, strategic documentation that influenced millions of young advocates. The phrase "pull a Maya Washington" entered youth vocabulary, meaning to document discrimination with dignity and strategic thinking. Victoria Sterling, the Grand Meridian CEO, became an industry leader in bias prevention. Her company's diversity metrics became the gold standard that competitors tried to match. The Grand Meridian Hospitality Equity Fund grew to $25 million, supporting 500 minority-owned businesses in the travel industry. Sterling frequently credited Maya Washington with teaching her that authentic accountability could be a competitive advantage. Maya Washington matriculated to Stanford University at 17, studying business and social justice. Her freshman orientation speech to 1,700 students focused on strategic activism in the digital age. She started Stanford's first documentation for Justice Club, teaching students how to create evidence-based advocacy campaigns. Her senior thesis, From Viral Moments to Systemic Change, a framework for digital civil rights advocacy, was published by Harvard Civil Rights Law Review. 5 years after the hotel incident, discrimination complaints in the hospitality industry had decreased by 34%. Hotels reported 67% fewer bias-related incidents after implementing the Maya Protocol training programs. Customer satisfaction scores among minority travelers increased by 28% across the industry. The economic impact was measurable. Hotels with strong bias prevention programs saw 19% higher revenue growth than those without. At 19, Maya Washington became the youngest board member of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. She mentored dozens of young people facing discrimination, teaching them documentation strategies and family communication techniques. Her Dignity First workshops reached over 10,000 teenagers across America. She co-authored the Young Advocate's Handbook with civil rights attorney Benjamin Davis, which became required reading in high school civics classes. Maya's technology background led her to develop an app called Justiceduck that helped people document discrimination incidents with legal-grade evidence collection. The app included real-time streaming capabilities, automatic backup to cloud services, and direct connection to civil rights attorneys. Within 2 years, Justiceduck had been downloaded 2.3 million times and used to document over 15,000 discrimination incidents. The app's success led to partnerships with major civil rights organizations and law enforcement accountability groups. On her 21st birthday, Maya Washington returned to the Grand Meridian Hotel in Chicago, the same location where her family had been discriminated against 7 years earlier. The hotel, now a flagship property for diversity and inclusion, hosted her birthday celebration. Victoria Sterling personally welcomed her, presenting Maya with a key to the presidential suite and a $100,000 donation to her Young Voices for Justice Foundation. "Maya Washington changed our company," Sterling announced to the assembled crowd of hotel executives and civil rights leaders. "More importantly, she changed our industry and showed us that doing the right thing is also the profitable thing." Maya's story became required reading in American history textbooks alongside other pivotal civil rights moments. Her 14-year-old livestream was preserved in the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. Teachers across America used her example to show students how one person's strategic response to injustice could create lasting change. The Washington Legacy Scholarship provided full college tuition for 50 students annually who demonstrated advocacy skills and academic excellence. At Maya's Stanford graduation, her grandfather Robert Washington delivered the keynote address to 10,000 graduates and families. "7 years ago, my granddaughter faced discrimination at a hotel. She could have been defeated, she could have been bitter. Instead, she chose to document, to strategize, and to create change. Today, millions of people travel with more dignity because of choices she made as a 14-year-old. Industries have reformed, laws have changed. Young people have been inspired to advocate for themselves. That's the power of strategic resistance. That's the legacy of dignified response to injustice." Maya Washington's story didn't end with the hotel incident, it began there. Her approach to discrimination response created a template that families worldwide have used to address bias. Her documentation methods have been adapted by journalists, activists, and ordinary citizens facing injustice. Her strategic thinking transformed how young people approach civil rights advocacy in the digital age. The Washington family proved that discrimination could be defeated through calm, strategic response under pressure, thorough documentation of evidence, strategic use of family and community support, economic pressure applied precisely where it creates change, persistent follow-through to ensure lasting reform. Their story shows that justice doesn't always require protests or lawsuits. Sometimes it requires staying dignified, gathering evidence, communicating strategically, and applying pressure where it counts most. Every family facing discrimination now has a roadmap for strategic response. Every young person has an example of how their voice, properly documented and strategically shared, can move institutions. Every corporation understands that bias incidents in the digital age have immediate, measurable consequences. Every civil rights advocate has seen how technology can accelerate justice when used thoughtfully. Maya Washington was 14 years old when she faced discrimination at a hotel. She responded with dignity, documentation, and strategic family communication. Her response transformed an entire industry and inspired a generation of young advocates. Your voice matters. Your documentation creates evidence. Your strategic response can change systems. The next story of strategic resistance to discrimination could be yours. The next industry transformation could start with your family's response to injustice. The next generation of advocates could be inspired by your courage under pressure. Remember the Washington family. Stay calm. Document everything. Communicate strategically. Apply pressure precisely. Justice requires witnesses. Accountability requires evidence. Change requires courage. Your story could be the next one that reshapes how America treats its citizens. Your family's dignity could inspire millions. Your strategic response could protect countless others. The Washington legacy continues with every person who chooses documentation over defeat, strategy over anger, and persistent accountability over temporary satisfaction. Share this story, learn from their example. Create your own legacy of strategic resistance to injustice. The movement continues with you. 2 years after Maya's Stanford graduation, a shocking revelation emerged from inside the Grand Meridian Hotel group. Former manager Kevin Sullivan, who had been fired during the Livestream incident, came forward with internal documents that exposed the true scope of discriminatory practices across the hotel chain. The Washington incident wasn't isolated, Sullivan revealed during a press conference arranged by Maya's legal team. I have emails, training materials, and policy documents showing systematic bias was actually company policy. The documents Sullivan provided were devastating. Internal memos from 2019 referred to undesirable clientele management. Training materials included coded language for avoiding bookings from certain demographics. Performance reviews rewarded staff for maintaining property standards, a euphemism for discrimination. Maya Washington, now 23 and working as a civil rights attorney, stood beside Sullivan at the press conference. "This validates what we always suspected," she said calmly. "The discrimination my family faced wasn't the result of a few bad employees. It was systematic, institutional, and intentional." The revelation triggered an even bigger crisis than the original Livestream incident. Grand Meridian stock plummeted 27% in a single day, wiping out $1.2 billion in market value. The Department of Justice opened a federal investigation into systematic discrimination practices. Class action lawsuits were filed representing over 10,000 minority guests who had been denied service or given substandard treatment. Maya's Livestream, now viewed over 50 million times, became exhibit A in federal court proceedings. Federal investigators discovered that discriminatory practices extended far beyond the Chicago property. Hidden camera footage from Maya's incident led to search warrants at Grand Meridian properties in 15 states. Investigators found training materials, booking algorithms designed to screen out minority guests, and internal communications discussing customer profiling strategies. The scale of institutional bias was staggering, affecting an estimated 45,000 guests over 5 years. Special Agent Lisa Rodriguez, leading the investigation, credited Maya's documentation methods. "Without that Livestream creating undeniable evidence, we never would have been able to build a case of this magnitude." Maya Washington had completed law school in 2 years through an accelerated program, driven by her mission to systematize civil rights enforcement. She founded the Digital Documentation Defense Fund, teaching families nationwide how to gather legally admissible evidence of discrimination. Her law firm, Washington & Associates, specialized in cases where technology and strategic documentation could create systemic change. "One Livestream changed an industry," she frequently told legal conferences. "Imagine what we can do with 10,000 properly documented cases." Washington v. Grand Meridian Hotel Group reached the Supreme Court in 2031, establishing crucial precedents for discrimination in the digital age. The case centered on whether Livestream documentation constituted legally protected civil rights activity. Maya argued her own case before the 9 justices at age 24, becoming the youngest attorney ever to do so. "Your Honors," she began, "this case isn't just about hotels. It's about whether Americans have the right to document discrimination and seek accountability in real time." Chief Justice Martinez asked, "Ms. Washington, how do we balance business privacy rights with civil rights documentation?" Justice Martinez, "There is no privacy right to discriminate. When businesses serve the public, their treatment of citizens must be transparent and accountable." The court ruled 8-1 in Maya's favor, establishing the Washington standard for civil rights documentation. Maya's methods spread globally as international civil rights organizations adapted her strategies. The European Union invited her to testify about digital discrimination documentation before the European Parliament. Her strategic documentation handbook was translated into 23 languages and used by advocacy groups worldwide. The United Nations Human Rights Council recognized her methodology as a model for accountability in the digital age. Countries from Canada to South Africa implemented Maya protocols for civil rights enforcement. Maya's Justicita app evolved into a comprehensive civil rights platform used by over 10 million people globally. The app say I could identify discrimination patterns across industries and geographical regions. Partnerships with legal organizations provided immediate attorney connections for documented incidents. Real-time streaming capabilities allowed incidents to be broadcast simultaneously across multiple platforms, preventing censorship or deletion. The technology had documented over 100,000 discrimination incidents, leading to policy changes at thousands of businesses. Maya's younger sister, Zoe Washington, followed her path but focused on educational discrimination. Using Maya's documentation methods, Zoe exposed systematic bias in college admissions processes at 3 major universities. Her live stream of a discriminatory admissions interview went viral with 15 million views, leading to Department of Education investigations. The Washington sisters became known as the Documentation Dynasty, a family that had revolutionized civil rights accountability. Maya's success inspired a wave of corporate reform movements across industries. The Washington test became standard corporate evaluation. Could companies survive real-time documentation of their customer service practices? Businesses began proactively implementing bias prevention programs rather than risk viral discrimination incidents. Corporate boards regularly discussed Maya Washington scenarios during crisis planning sessions. The phrase "getting Maya'd" entered business vocabulary, describing when documentation and strategic response destroyed discriminatory practices. Harvard Law School created the Washington Institute for Digital Civil Rights with Maya as its founding director at age 25. The institute developed cutting-edge research on technology-assisted civil rights enforcement. Students from around the world applied to study Maya's strategic documentation methods. The institute's graduates became civil rights attorneys, corporate compliance officers, and policy advocates worldwide. The Washington method became required curriculum at over 500 law schools internationally. Maya launched Justice Live, a streaming platform dedicated to real-time civil rights documentation. The platform allowed users to stream discrimination incidents directly to trained legal observers and media professionals. Within 6 months, Justice Live had 25 million registered users and had documented discrimination incidents in all 50 states. Major news networks partnered with the platform for breaking civil rights coverage. The platform's tagline became famous: "Discrimination dies in the light." At age 26, Maya Washington was recruited by both major political parties to run for Congress. She chose to run as an independent, focused solely on civil rights and corporate accountability. Her campaign events were live-streamed using the same technology that had made her famous as a teenager. "I learned at 14 that strategic documentation could change industries," she told campaign audiences. "Now let's see what it can do for American democracy." Her campaign slogan, "Accountability, documented, real-time." Maya Washington won her House seat with 73% of the vote, the largest margin in her district's history. Her victory speech was live-streamed by 50 million people worldwide. 14 years ago, I was denied a hotel room because of my race. Today, you've elected me to Congress to ensure no American faces such discrimination again. She became the youngest African-American woman ever elected to Congress. Her first bill, the Digital Civil Rights Protection Act, requiring businesses to allow customer documentation of service interactions. Maya's congressional office became a model for government transparency, live streaming committee hearings, and constituent meetings. Her Digital Civil Rights Protection Act passed with overwhelming bipartisan support, establishing federal protections for discrimination documentation. She introduced the Corporate Accountability Database Act, creating a federal registry of businesses with verified discrimination incidents. The Maya Washington Scholarship Act provided federal funding for civil rights documentation training in high schools nationwide. Foreign governments invited Congresswoman Washington to advise on civil rights policy development. Her documentation methods were adopted by democracy movements in over 40 countries. The Washington Protocols became standard training for international human rights observers. She addressed the United Nations General Assembly about technology's role in advancing global civil rights. The Washington family established the Robert Washington Foundation, honoring Maya's grandfather's memory and business legacy. The foundation provided grants to minority-owned businesses and civil rights organizations worldwide. Annual Washington Awards recognized individuals who used strategic documentation to create systemic change. The foundation's motto: documentation, strategy, dignity, change. At age 30, Congresswoman Maya Washington launched the Civil Rights Innovation Lab within the Library of Congress. The lab preserved digital documentation of discrimination incidents for historical research and legal precedent. It partnered with technology companies to develop advanced bias detection algorithms. The lab's archives contained over 500,000 documented incidents, creating the world's largest database of discrimination evidence. Maya turned her attention to artificial intelligence bias, recognizing it as the next frontier for civil rights. She introduced legislation requiring transparency in AI decision-making that affected hiring, lending, and service delivery. Her committee hearings on AI bias were live-streamed to millions, bringing the same transparency that had launched her career. The algorithms making decisions about our lives must be as accountable as the humans who program them, she declared. At age 35, Maya Washington was nominated to the Supreme Court, becoming the youngest nominee in American history. Her confirmation hearings were live-streamed worldwide, watched by over 200 million people. Senators, she told the Judiciary Committee, I learned at 14 that documentation creates accountability. As a justice, I will ensure our Constitution protects every American's right to demand that accountability. She was confirmed by a vote of 82 to 18, the largest confirmation margin in decades. Justice Washington's first major opinion established the Digital Documentation Doctrine, constitutional protection for citizens recording interactions with businesses and government. Her majority opinion in Citizens v. Corporate America required all publicly traded companies to allow customer documentation of service interactions. She authored groundbreaking decisions protecting live streaming rights, AI transparency, and digital civil rights enforcement. Legal scholars called her the Constitution's digital defender. At age 40, Justice Washington was elected to the International Court of Justice, becoming the first American to simultaneously serve on both courts. Her international work focused on establishing global standards for civil rights documentation and corporate accountability. She developed the Universal Documentation Protocols adopted by over 100 countries. Her influence extended far beyond American borders, reshaping global approaches to discrimination prevention. Maya Washington received the Nobel Peace Prize at age 42 for advancing global civil rights through innovative documentation strategies and systematic accountability measures. Her acceptance speech was live-streamed to over 500 million people worldwide. 28 years ago, a 14-year-old girl live-streamed her family's discrimination at a hotel. Today, that same documentation technology protects civil rights on every continent. The movement that began with one family's dignified response to injustice has become humanity's shared commitment to accountability. By age 45, the Washington Doctrine had become established international law. The doctrine established three fundamental principles. Citizens have the right to document discrimination. Businesses must allow transparent service interactions. Systematic bias must face systematic accountability. Over 150 countries had incorporated Washington Doctrine principles into their legal systems. The European Union, African Union, and Association of Southeast Asian Nations all adopted Washington Protocol standards. At age 50, Maya Washington retired from the Supreme Court to focus on her Global Foundation work. Her farewell address was watched by over 1 billion people worldwide. 36 years ago, I was a 14-year-old girl who refused to accept discrimination. Today, that refusal has become a global movement. Every person who documents injustice, every business that chooses accountability, every government that protects civil rights, you are all part of the Washington legacy. Historians ranked Maya Washington among the most influential civil rights figures in American history, alongside Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Frederick Douglass. The Maya Washington Institute for Strategic Civil Rights was established at every major university worldwide. Her childhood livestream was preserved in the Smithsonian, the Louvre, and the British Museum as a pivotal moment in human rights history. Children around the world learned the Maya Washington method in elementary school civics classes. 50 years after the hotel incident, discrimination complaints had decreased by 78% globally in industries that adopted Washington protocols. Corporate bias training based on her methods had reached over 2 billion employees worldwide. The Justice Edict platform had documented over 10 million discrimination incidents, leading to policy changes at 500,000-plus businesses. An estimated 100 million people had used her documentation strategies to address discrimination. Maya Washington passed away at age 85, surrounded by family and having lived to see discrimination become extinct in many industries due to her systematic documentation and accountability methods. Her funeral was attended by world leaders, civil rights icons, and millions of ordinary people whose lives had been improved by her work. The final speaker was her great-granddaughter, also named Maya, who had just been elected to Congress. Great-grandmother Maya taught us that one person's strategic response to injustice can change the world. Today, we continue her work using new technologies to create even greater accountability. The Maya Washington Foundation continued her work long after her death, training new generations in strategic civil rights documentation. Her methods were embedded in artificial intelligence systems that automatically detected and reported discrimination patterns. Schools worldwide required Washington method training before graduation. Her influence had become so fundamental to global civil rights that discrimination itself was becoming extinct through systematic accountability. What began as one family's hotel discrimination incident had become humanity's permanent commitment to dignity and accountability. Maya Washington's 14-year-old Livestream had evolved into a global system ensuring no person would ever face the discrimination her family had experienced. The hotel where it all began had become the Maya Washington Civil Rights Museum, visited by millions annually. The presidential suite where her family should have stayed was preserved exactly as it was, with a plaque reading, "Here began the documentation revolution that ended systematic discrimination worldwide." Maya Washington's story proved that strategic response to injustice could literally reshape human civilization. Her methods demonstrated that dignity, documentation, and persistent accountability could eliminate systematic discrimination. Her legacy showed that one person's refusal to accept injustice could inspire billions to demand better. The movement she started with a 14-year-old's Livestream became humanity's permanent defense against discrimination. Today, children around the world carry Maya phones, devices specifically designed for civil rights documentation. Every business interaction is transparently recorded and instantly analyzed for bias. Discrimination has become virtually extinct because it cannot survive in a world of total accountability. The Washington method is no longer a civil rights strategy, it's simply how civilized societies function. Maya Washington's childhood response to hotel discrimination didn't just change an industry, it changed humanity itself. The 14-year-old girl who refused to accept injustice became the woman who made injustice impossible. Her documentation revolution created a world where discrimination cannot hide, cannot survive, and cannot hurt another family. That is the ultimate legacy of the Washington family's one night at a hotel in Chicago. That is the power of strategic resistance to injustice. That is the proof that one person's dignity can transform the world. The movement continues because Maya Washington showed us that accountability is not just possible, it's inevitable when good people refuse to stay silent. Document everything, stay dignified. Apply pressure strategically, create change systematically. The Washington legacy lives in everyone who chooses to make discrimination impossible through strategic accountability. The revolution continues with you.